Hello there, how's it going? From this video, we are going to start talking about functions, chapter 8. And this will be our very first introduction to the idea of function, what they are and how to use them. And in this one, I will introduce the idea of function. So the definition of a function is that it is a reusable block of code. It is a reusable block of code. And when I teach function, I like to compare them to variables. Now that's not a very good comparison, but I think it helps in explaining. So let me go to our editor and let's start working. Touch functions.py, and then I will open my file functions. Now I say that they are comparable to a variable. A variable is used to store a value, and then you can use that value as many times as you want. So if I run this code, I get 5 multiple times. I change it once, and my whole code will be changed. And function is very similar to that, but function, as I said, a function is a reusable, so you can use it as many times as you want, block of code. In other words, it is like a variable, but instead of a value, it stores a block of code. So enough talking, let's try to create a function. So each function has a name, and we create a function with the def keyword, and then you can give your function a name. So here we are going to create a very simple example called greet, and we put parentheses. Now parentheses are what differentiate a function from a variable. Now the purpose of parentheses is not just to differentiate, they have their own purpose, but we will talk about parentheses a little later. And now inside the function, this is the body, or you can say the block of code, that you want to store in your function. Now let's add a body. You can have as many lines as you want. We can say hello there, how's it going. Now that's my function. It has only a single line. I can remove this comment. It has only a single line, and I can use my function greet. I can use it as many times as I want, and I can run my code python functions.py, and I got hello there, how's it going 3 times. And if I want to change my function, I can just change it once. Hello, nice to meet you. And when I run my code, I will get a different behavior. Hello, nice to meet you. That's the idea of a function. It is a reusable block of code. Now each function has a name so that you can use your function, and parentheses are what differentiate a function from a variable. That's the most basic idea. Now let's build on this example. We can actually pass something called arguments inside these parentheses. So you can say arguments are like options to choose from, something like that. So what do I mean by that? For example, I have an argument for username, and I can say hello username. Now when I'm calling my function, I can set my username to, let's say, Alice, and the second time Bob, and third time Charlie. And I can run my function again, and you will see different behavior. So when I put Alice here, my Alice will be set to the username, and then my function will run with Alice set to the username. Now my function actually needs something called an argument, and In order for it to run, we need to pass Alice and then it will run Bob and Charlie. If you don't pass anything, it is actually gonna fail. Python will complain that this function needs a value to run. Python function.py. Now it is saying missing one required positional argument username. We will talk about what positional argument mean later on, but the idea is simple. For it to work, it needs a username. And you can create as many functions as you want. You can say def by, you can create a function called by. It can also take a name. You can just say name, print, goodbye, and you can put name. Now we can call greet with Alice, and we can call bye with Alice as well. Bye name. This time I'm using the word name. It doesn't matter what name you choose. And we can run our code. Python functions.py. So that's the idea of function. I hope it all makes sense. And one thing I didn't explain is this part, what this part is. Well, we call it a doc string. So you use 3 double quotation mark on each end, and it is used to explain the function. Now it is optional. You can include a doc string if you want to. So doc string means documentation string. And when we actually hover over our function, it actually shows us the doc string. So this is the doc string. Display a simple greeting. It is coming from here. So if you want to explain your function, you can put a doc string, and your IDE, in my case PyCharm, will show the doc string when you hover over your function name. That's the idea. When we are learning about function, I think it's a good idea to not include it, to keep things simple. But this is it for this video. In the next one, we are going to talk about try to yourself. But before we do that, let's talk about something called arguments and parameters. What's the difference? Arguments and parameters. So as I said, our function can take an input. The input is username, and the placeholder, you can call it a placeholder where the username will be stored. This is called the parameter. And here the Alice that I have passed, that's the argument. That's the difference. So you store argument inside a parameter. So username is like a box. And Alice is stored in your box. That's the idea. Now people use these terms interchangeably, but there's a difference. Parameters are used to store arguments. So here the book is, let's say how the book explains. The variable username in the definition of greet user is an example of a parameter, a piece of information the function needs to do its job. The value Jesse in greet user Jesse is an example of an argument. People sometimes speak of argument and parameters interchangeably. Don't be surprised if you see the variables in a function definition referred to as arguments, or the variables in a function call referred to as a parameter. So yeah, people use these terms interchangeably. Also, there's a difference. So yes, now we can end the video. I hope you enjoyed it. In the next one, we are gonna solve a few problems. Bye-bye.